Hi, today we'll be talking about factoring quadratic expressions. Now, if you haven't already gone to the message board and looked up the factoring flowchart document, please do so. This will remind you about how everything works with factoring. Okay, now this is a review of Algebra 1. I'm only going to go into a little bit more difficult stuff. Everyone should already know how to do factor by grouping, difference of perfect squares, perfect square trinomial. They should be able to do factoring the easy way. They should be able to do a, well, you can't do a sum of squares, but today we will talk about sum of or difference of cubes, and we will talk about factoring the long way. Okay. So I'm going to go right down the document to show you. And so every page just has something on it. If you haven't had a chance to go check this out, please do so. Okay. All right, so right down here, sum of squares, you can't do it. It's prime, so it can't be factored further. Now the sum or difference of cubes can be factored. So here's the method. So whatever number cubed in front, usually x cubed minus, like, let's say 27, you would rewrite it as x minus 3. You would just cube root both and put both numbers here. So x minus 3 times x squared plus 3x plus 9. And so that would be the factored form of x squared, or x cubed minus 27. Now if I had x cubed plus 27, it would be x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. So just the difference there. So real fast, if you have a minus sign, the next sign is going to be the same. Okay, if you have a plus sign, it's also going to be a plus in that first binomial. And then in the second trinomial, or the second part, it's going to be the opposite sign of what was in here. And then the last number is always positive. So that's sum of difference of cubes. Okay, so like for example, if you go in there and you look at it, okay, something like this, 5, all right, x cubed plus 1,000, this would be x plus 10, because the cube root of 1,000 is 10, times x squared minus 10x plus 100. Okay, now on this one, you would need to factor out the 6 first. Okay, and that's why there's a 6 in front. But then you have x cubed minus y cubed, so that becomes x minus y times x squared plus xy plus y squared. So that's just sum or difference of cubes. You do need to know that it does exist, and it does seem a little bit tricky, but it's not the end of the world. Now, if you had x to the 6 minus y to the 6, okay, you need to understand that that is a difference of squares first. Okay, and so this would become x cubed minus y cubed times x cubed plus y cubed, and so that's why we have two versions of the sum or difference cube formulas. Okay, now this one cannot be done. This first part is a cube, but the second part is not, so therefore you cannot factor because there's no common factor. Okay, and you have to remember your first step in factoring flowchart is always look for greatest common factor. Okay, alright, so that's that one. Now, I do want to talk about what happens if that first number is bigger than 1. In other words, the standard form, the first coefficient is bigger than 1. I used to use a different method. I love this method beyond any doubt that I just snapped it up and I said, this is my method. Okay. Alright, so polynomials in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, non-perfect square trinomials with a being greater than 1. And this is called the AC method. Okay, for some of you guys wondering. Alright, so let's say we're dealing, and the best part is to just look at it and see how it's done. Okay, so starting trinomial x, or 2x squared plus 9x plus 4. So first off, you just take a, which is the first number, times the last number, and you get the new number, so 8. So we're going to reset the problem. We're going to get rid of the 2 and just put a 1. We're going to keep the 9x, and we're going to put the 8 here for the 8 instead of a 4. Okay, now we factor this part. Okay, so we factor this part and we get x plus 8 times x plus 1. Okay, now if you remember we got rid of the 2 earlier for no apparent reason, we're going to put it back. So we put the 2 back in, okay, and then we factor each one of these. So this one has a common factor of 2, so I factor out a 2. This one doesn't have any common factor, so I leave it be. And then the 2 just disappears, and you have your actual answer. Now, how do you check to see if you did the AC method right? If you do FOIL, you should be able to see it just work real fast. Okay, so let's try out another problem, and I'll just show you how it works. Okay. Alright, so this works great when your number in front is bigger than 1. So 6x squared plus x minus 15. Okay, so the first step is to take the first number, 6, and times it by negative 15. And yes, you do have to pay attention to the signs. And that's going to get me negative 90. There we go. Okay, so now we go back and rewrite it, and instead of the 6x squared, we're going to have just x squared plus x minus 90. And then we factor this. Okay, so you're going to ask yourself, okay, what two numbers multiply to negative 90 but add up to 1? All right, and some of you guys have probably already thought of that. It's going to be x plus 10 and x minus 9. Okay, so I have my form there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 6 back in. So 6x plus 10, and I got 6x minus 9. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to see if I can factor out anything. Okay, if you notice 6x, and I can't factor out a 6, but I can definitely factor out a 2 out of both of these. So I'm going to rewrite it as 2 parentheses 3x plus 5. Okay, and then on this one, okay, I'm going to notice I can't factor out a 6, but I can definitely factor out a 3 out of each one. Okay, and so I'm left with times by 3 parentheses 2x minus 3. Okay, and then the very last step, all you need to do is get rid of the 2 and the 3 in front of the parentheses, and voila, I have factored into the correct form, 2x minus 3. Now, if you're not so certain, if you're like going, Mr. Vanny, I don't believe you. Well, do FOIL and check it out. So do 3x times 2x, which is 6x squared, which matches. Then do 3x times negative 3, which is negative 9x. 5 times 2, which is 10, so plus 10x. And then 5 times negative 3, which is negative 15. Well, you don't have to be a mind reader to know that it does work. 6x squared plus x minus 15. Okay, I love this method. It just definitely helps out, and it just works with it. Okay, so you do need to be able to factor and work through this process. Okay, if you have any questions about factoring, go on to the message board for factoring flow chart. Okay, if you're looking for the factoring flow chart, you'll be able to download the same exact document I have. All right, thank you guys. Have a great day.